Hey everyone. How could I not go live when the memo has just been released, right? I am going to open up my chat and do the best I can to monitor that as we go along. I know that there are probably gazillions of people that are doing this right now, so I understand if there aren't many of you. But I want to go over this memo with everybody and talk about it. I have to get ready for an interview with John B. Wells in about an hour and a half or so. So I'm going to go through this. And it's basically what we've been saying for how many months now. It's really crazy, and it's sad. It really is. Let's go through what it says. First, there's a letter from the White House to Devin Nunes. And if you hear a little, I'm a little sick, so just bear with me. Dear Mr. Chairman, on January 29th, 2018, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence voted to disclose publicly a memorandum containing classified information provided to the committee in connection with its oversight activities, which is the memorandum, which is attached to this letter. As provided by Clause 11G of Rule 10 of the House of Representatives, the committee has forwarded this memorandum to the President based on its determination that the release of the memorandum would serve the public interest. The Constitution vests the President with the authority to protect national security secrets from disclosure. As the Supreme Court has recognized, you guys can't see it. Hold on. Hold on. Sorry about that. As the Supreme Court has recognized, it is the President's responsibility to, let me just make sure I'm showing my screen. I'm bad at this. It is the President's responsibility to classify, declassify, and control access to information bearing on our intelligence sources and methods and national defense. And then they say, see Department of Navy versus Egan, 484 U.S. 518, 527. In order to facilitate appropriate congressional oversight, the executive branch may entrust classified information to the appropriate committees of Congress, as it has done in connection with the committee's oversight activities here. The executive branch does so on the assumption that the committee will responsibly protect such classified information consistent with the laws of the United States. The committee has now determined that the release of the memorandum would be appropriate. The executive branch, across administrations of both parties, has worked to accommodate congressional requests to declassify specific materials in the public interest. However, public release of classified information by unilateral action of the legislative branch is extremely rare and raises significant separations of powers concerns. Accordingly, the committee's request to release the memorandum is interpreted as a request for declassification pursuant to the President's authority. In other words, he wouldn't usually step in and just do this without the committee coming to him first and saying, hey, this needs to come out. This needs to come out. The President understands that the protection of our national security represents his highest obligation. Accordingly, he has directed lawyers and national security staff to assess the declassification request consistent with established standards governing the handling of classified information, including those under Section 3.1D of Executive Order 13-526. Those standards permit declassification when the public interest in disclosure outweighs any need to protect the information. The White House review process also included input from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI, and the Department of Justice. Consistent with this review and these standards, the President has determined that declassification of the memorandum is appropriate. Based on this assessment, and in light of the significant public interest in the memorandum, the President has authorized a declassification of the memorandum. To be clear, the memorandum reflects the judgments of its congressional authors. The President understands that oversight concerning matters related to the memorandum may be continuing, though the circumstances leading to the declassification through this process are extraordinary. The executive branch stands ready to work with Congress to accommodate oversight requests consistent with applicable standards and processes, including the need to protect intelligence sources and methods. Let's see what this says. There's a footnote here, and it references a couple of other administrations. I have to dig into that, but I wanted to get into the memo. And here we go. Here we go. Here's the memo, guys. Here's what the Democrats were so afraid of. Joey, if you don't think this is valuable, you don't have to watch it. I'm just letting you know. Okay. The purpose of the memo. This memorandum provides members an update on significant facts relating to the committee's ongoing investigation into the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation and their use of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act during the 2016 presidential election cycle. Our findings, which are detailed below, 1, raise concerns with the legitimacy and legality of certain DOJ and FBI interactions with the FISA court, and 2, represent a troubling breakdown of legal process established to protect the American people from abuses related to the FISA process. Investigation updates. On October 21st, 2016, DOJ and FBI sought and received a FISA probable cause order, not under Title VII, which I believe is the title that says it's a national security threat, authorizing electronic surveillance on Carter Page from the FISA court. Page is a U.S. citizen who served as a volunteer advisor to the Trump presidential campaign. Consistent with requirements under FISA, the application had to first be certified by the director or deputy director of the FBI. It then required the approval of the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, or the Senate-confirmed Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division. The FBI and DOJ obtained 1 initial FISA warrant targeting Carter Page and 3 FISA renewals from the FISA court. As required by statute 50 U.S.C. 1805 D1, a FISA order on an American citizen must be renewed by the FISA court every 90 days, and each renewal requires a separate finding of probable cause. So they need to prove it every time. Then Director James Comey signed 3 FISA applications in question on behalf of the FBI, and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe signed 1. Then DAG Sally Yates, then Acting DAG Dana Bonte, and DAG Rod Rosenstein each signed 1 or more FISA applications on behalf of the DOJ. Due to the sensitive nature of foreign intelligence activity, FISA submissions, including renewals, before the FISA court are classified. As such, the public's confidence in the integrity of the FISA process depends on the court's ability to hold the government to the highest standard, particularly as it relates to the surveillance of American citizens. However, the FISA court's rigor in protecting the rights of Americans, which is reinforced by 90-day renewals of surveillance orders, is necessarily dependent on the government's production to the court of all material and relevant facts. This should include information potentially favorable to the target of the FISA application that is known by the government. In other words, if they have something that says, well, maybe we don't need a FISA warrant, they still have to present the positive information and the negative information. They can't just present one side or leave things out. In the case of Carter Page, the government had at least 4 independent opportunities before the FISA court to accurately provide an accounting of the relevant facts. However, our findings indicate that, as described below, material and relevant information was omitted. Now, this is where it gets really juicy. Bad news. The dossier, compiled by Christopher Steele dossier, on behalf of the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign, formed an essential part of the Carter Page FISA application. Steele was a longtime FBI source who was paid over $160,000 by the DNC and Clinton campaign via the law firm Perkins Coie and research firm Fusion GPS to obtain derogatory information on Donald Trump's ties to Russia. Neither the initial application in October of 2016 nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, Clinton campaign, or any party/campaign in funding Steele's efforts, even though the political origins of the Steele dossier were then known to senior DOJ and FBI officials. So they freaking omitted the fact that it was a political hit job. They just didn't tell them. Probably because Steele was used as a source for the FBI. That's my assumption. The initial FISA application notes Steele was working for a named U.S. person, but does not name Fusion GPS and Principal Glenn Simpson, who was paid by a U.S. law firm, Perkins Coie, representing the DNC, even though this was known by the DOJ at the time that political actors were involved with the Steele dossier. The application does not mention Steele was ultimately working on behalf of and paid by the DNC and the Clinton campaign, or that the FBI had separately authorized payment to Steele for the same information. Wow. So the FBI was paying Christopher Steele to do this at the same time as the DNC and Perkins Coie was paying. And even maybe Obama for America with $900 and something thousand. You're right. This information was all, we know all this stuff already. This is stuff we know, but this is formalizing it. And there's a couple things in here that we don't know, okay? And this is the actual memo. 2, the Carter Page FISA application also cited extensively a September 23, 2016 Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff, which focuses on Page July 2016 trip to Moscow. This article does not corroborate the Steele dossier because it is derived from information leaked by Steele himself to Yahoo News. Circular. The Page FISA application incorrectly assesses that Steele did not directly provide information to Yahoo News. Steele has admitted in British court filings that he met with Yahoo News and several other outlets in September of 2016 at the direction of Fusion GPS. And we went over this in the testimony that we went over and I dissected and we went over together. Crazy. Perkins Coie was aware of Steele's initial media contacts because they hosted at least one meeting in D.C. in 2016 with Steele and Fusion GPS where this matter was discussed. Steele was suspended and then terminated as an FBI source for what the FBI defines as the most serious of violations, an unauthorized disclosure to the media of his relationship with the FBI in an October 30th, 2016 Mother Jones article by David Korn. Steele should have been terminated for his previous undisclosed contacts with Yahoo and other outlets in September, before the Page application was submitted to the FISA court in October, but Steele improperly concealed from and lied to the FBI about those contacts. Do you remember what I did in the testimony? I kind of went off and I was like, he basically, they found out that the FBI was reinvestigating Hillary Clinton in October, and Steele said, and Simpson said, this can't stand. If they're going to influence an election, so are we. Yeah. That's what this is all about right here in bullet A. B. Steele's numerous encounters with the media violated the cardinal rule of source handling, maintaining confidentiality, and demonstrated that Steele had become a less than reliable source for the FBI. You got to wonder what he's ever told them in the past that wasn't politically motivated. Before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with the DOJ via then-Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, a senior DOJ official who worked closely with Deputy Attorney General Yates and later Rosenstein. Shortly after the election, the FBI began interviewing Orr, documenting his communications with Steele. For example, in September of 2016, Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against then-candidate Trump when Steele said he was, quote, was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. Why? This clear evidence of Steele's bias was recorded by Orr at the time and subsequently in official FBI files, but not reflected in any of the Page FISA applications. So